Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's Fly Aviation 95. Today's topic is going to be focused on flight planning, takeoffs, and landings, the basic big three. To begin planning our flight, we'll need to use an application called Simbrife. Simbrife is a free flight simulator flight planning website that you can access on your phone, computer, or tablet. Unlike Navigraph, which requires a subscription, Simbrife is completely free to use. Once you've created an account, you will be directed to a page that looks similar to what you're currently viewing. While yours may be blank initially, after completing a few flights, all the data visible on mine will show on yours. We're going to navigate to what appears to be an eraser. Upon clicking, the page will refresh, displaying all the necessary information. Now, you will be prompted to fill in various details such as airline information, your departure and arrival airports, and aircraft type. For example, let's say we're planning a flight from Hartsfield-Jackson, KATL, to London Heathrow, EGLL, using Delta as our airline. We'll select our aircraft type, like the Airbus A350, and optionally adjust the departure and arrival runways to match our preferences or real-world conditions. Before finalizing, we may adjust the cruise profile to set our desired cruising speed. For instance, we might set the cruise profile to Mach 0.85, which is a common cruising speed for commercial flights. This is important because past 25,000 feet, the aircraft will be traveling subsonically. Beyond this altitude, the speed indicator will show Mach numbers instead of knots. The next step that needs to be taken is to then generate your flight plan. Once generated, the flight plan will provide us with detailed information including departure and arrival times, as well as a load sheet. After viewing the necessary information, don't forget to note down the cargo, passenger, and fuel information provided by the load sheet. This data will be crucial for configuring the aircraft for the flight. The load sheet is crucial as it helps us configure the aircraft for the flight. It includes details such as fuel requirements, cargo load, and passenger count. Ensuring these figures are accurate is essential for a successful flight, affecting factors like takeoff, landing, and cruise performance. With all these steps completed, we're ready to embark on our virtual journey, all from the comfort of our own rooms. But before diving into the game, make sure to copy the route information provided by Simbrife. This data will be crucial for accurately setting up our route within the game, ensuring a seamless and realistic flight experience. From this point on, you're going to have to act swiftly because on iOS, there's a time limit, though I'm uncertain of its duration, likely around 5 minutes or more. Beyond this time frame, any copied content won't be pastable. Recall how we copied the route from Simbrife. We'll paste it into the search bar. This action will populate our flight plan with all the copied waypoints. But before hitting enter to add them to the plan, let's select our departure. We'll begin by selecting our departure airport, KATL. This action displays crucial airport information such as location, elevation, in our case, 10.267 ft, runways, and procedures. We're interested in the departure information, so we'll click on that. We'll choose Gary 2, aligning our aircraft in the eastward direction towards the Atlantic Ocean. Once selected, we'll choose the transition and proceed. Now add the information we just pasted from the search bar to your flight plan. It may appear cluttered with distant waypoints. No worries, we can remove unnecessary ones, like Q71 and Q38, which only elongate the flight plan unnecessarily. In transatlantic flights, ocean tracks are typically used, but we'll skip that for simplicity in this demonstration. Now that our flight plan is in good shape, let's head to our destination airport and repeat the process for approach and arrival, ensuring alignment with our desired landing direction and respective runways. Upon approaching our destination airport, we'll repeat a similar process as we did for departure. This time, instead of selecting a departure procedure, we'll focus on our landing approach. Firstly, we'll select our arrival airport, London Heathrow. Then, we'll navigate to the procedure section. Here, we'll choose our arrival, aiming for a start that aligns us with the runway for a smooth landing. In our case, we'll select NUGR1H, which provides guidance towards runways 09L and 09R. This star offers essential information such as required altitudes at various points and directional guidance, ensuring a precise approach. Adjustments can be made based on specific preferences or conditions. After selecting the arrival star, we'll proceed to choose our approach, connecting us from the last waypoint of the star to the runway threshold. Our chosen arrival, R09RZ, will guide us smoothly towards our landing runway. Once added, our flight plan should now include the necessary procedures for both departure and arrival, ensuring a comprehensive route from start to finish. We're going to head to the menu and navigate to the weight and balance section. Mine is already set up quickly, but sometimes the weights and balances may not be entirely accurate due to the hassle of using the slider tools in infinite flight. We aim to align it as closely as possible to what Simbrife suggests. In this instance, we have 47,149 instead of 47,151, which should still suffice for our fuel needs to reach London Heathrow, though greater precision would be preferable. Configuring the passenger count is relatively simpler. It should accurately reflect the number of passengers, which in our case is 267. Now, on to cargo, which can be as challenging as adjusting the fuel slider. We aim for 6,661, but in my case, it's 6,630, the closest achievable figure. Nonetheless, cargo rarely changes mid-flight, unlike the passenger count or fuel. As long as everything, especially the fuel, is as close to the ideal as possible, we're set. Before departure, let's ensure our trim setting and autopilot configuration are set. For trim settings, we'll consult resources like the Infinite Flight Forum, which provides guidance based on aircraft load. In our case, with a load slightly above 50%, we'll set trim at 15%. Other settings, like throttle at 80% and flaps to 2, can also be adjusted accordingly. During takeoff, we'll aim for a rotate speed of 140. Adjustments may be necessary based on your specific conditions and airport. Similarly, for landing, target a speed of 130 with trim at 30% and throttle at 35%. Again, these figures may vary depending on circumstances. Lastly, remember to keep an eye out for other aircraft during your flight, especially during takeoff and landing phases, to maintain safe distances and avoid collisions. It's important to note that this section of the guide, found on the forum page, is dedicated to the A350-900, but there are options for other aircraft as well. However, this does not include the A220-300, A330-900, as well as the Challenger 350. This guide may be somewhat outdated, so it's essential to keep that in mind. Nonetheless, there are online resources available that provide trim information for up-to-date aircraft models from real life. Taking off is much easier than landing. It is the simplest phase of flight and doesn't require much other than setting the auto throttle to a certain percentage, pulling up at certain speeds, and lifting off the ground. Once airborne, you're all set to go. Before approaching the runway, it's crucial to ensure that your autopilot settings are configured. This ensures a smooth transition once in the sky. You'll only need to adjust a series of 4 different areas: altitude, speed, nav, and throttle. In real-life procedures, engines are often set to 50% N1 before takeoff to synchronize them and avoid asymmetric thrust, which could lead to directional control issues during takeoff. As you prepare for takeoff, release the parking brake and use the rudder brake for alignment. Make slide adjustments to ensure you remain on the centerline as you start rolling. Rotate at 140 knots, ensuring a positive climb before retracting the gear and flaps. Different aircraft have varied procedures for retracting flaps, but it's generally done shortly after takeoff to streamline the process. Once airborne, engage the autopilot and adjust the vertical speed to 1,800 feet per minute. Set the speed to 250 knots to comply with regulations below 10,000 feet. This speed restriction is in place to ensure safety and separation of aircraft in congested airspace, aligning with real-world regulations. As you climb, remember to turn off the landing lights and seatbelt sign at 10,000 feet, and increase speed to 300 knots. Cruising at Mach 0.80, slightly below the required Mach 0.85, provides a buffer to avoid speed violations. As we approach London Heathrow on our left base for 9 right, notice a couple of things that might differ on your screen compared to mine. Firstly, we're currently flying at 4,000 feet, whereas our flight plan dictates 3,000 feet. I'll begin descending to 2,500 feet now. Our current speed is 247 knots with no flaps deployed. However, I'll wait until we're closer to the airport before deploying them. It's crucial not to forget to deploy your flaps, especially in live ATC situations where you might get distracted. Always ensure your flaps are deployed and reduce your speed to around 180 knots, gradually decreasing to 165 knots as we approach London Heathrow. Depending on your preference and aircraft weight, adjust your flaps accordingly. As we make our left turn for the final approach at London Heathrow, I recommend using the HUD for guidance if you're not comfortable eyeballing it. Lower your speed to 145 knots and ensure your control surfaces are calibrated. I'll disengage the autopilot now, leaving only the speed control engaged. As we approach our landing, observe the 2 dots ahead. They should appear red on white, indicating that we're intercepting the glide slope correctly. As we continue our approach, I'll take manual control of the throttle, slightly increasing speed as we descend. Gradually reduce throttle as we approach touchdown, aiming for around 129 knots. As we touch down, make slight rudder adjustments if necessary to stay aligned with the centerline. Apply reverse thrust, but be cautious not to use reverse thrust past 60 knots. Slow down using manual braking and prepare to exit the runway onto the taxiway leading to the apron. Landing can be challenging, especially with live weather conditions affecting your approach. Remember, practice makes perfect, and don't be discouraged by less than perfect landings. Every landing is a learning opportunity. If you have any questions or need further guidance, feel free to ask in the comments below. I'll provide links to other resources that can offer more in-depth explanations on landing techniques. As of now, this was Fly Aviation 95 with you, explaining the flight planning, takeoff, and landing of today's video. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, night, or whatever time it could be for you. Once again, thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the skies.